Hey guys, Whitney here. How are you guys? Jump over to the chat box. Just let me know that you can hear and see me. That'd be fantastic. All right, I do expect a few other people to join today. Woohoo! Thanks, Nicole, for letting me know. Anyways, let's get started. So this webinar is part of my series of how to build a cash flowing real estate business of your dreams. And so essentially I do this webinar series for you if you fall in these categories. Essentially, you've tried to buy rental real estate before, but maybe you got stuck in analysis paralysis and lost your confidence. Or maybe you've already invested in a few rental properties and hit a ceiling of growth and you don't know how to scale. Or maybe you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm like so at the beginning. I'm just so overwhelmed by all the information out there and I'm just stuck. I need to demystify parts of these process and just make it a little bit more tangible for me. I would love to know, go over to the chat box and let me know which of these three categories you fall in. So that'll help me kind of tailor our questions as we go through today. And while you're doing that, again, just to recap, if you have invested in real estate before, you are in the right place. If you've never purchased real estate before, guess what? You're in the right place because what I'm going to share today is so super important. So before I get started, if this is the first time we've met, welcome. I'm Whitney. This is me and my crazy crew. But this picture right here is the exact reason why I love investing in real estate and generating as passive returns as I possibly can from the real estate. You see, I started investing in 2002, doing live-in flipping and house hacking, and that was fine and dandy and all. I was able to, create buckets of cash. My husband joined me in 2006. But it took us a few years to really put our finger on the fact that while we might be building our net worth, we didn't have true financial freedom because we didn't have that passive cash flow coming in to help pay the day-to-day bills. Guys, it's really hard to go to the grocery store and pay your bills and when you're just like, hey, I'm, I don't, my next paycheck will be in 6 months when I get that flip done. So anyways, just fast forward a few years since my husband and I kind of like made that slap in the head realization and transition. We've been able to partner in over $500 million of real estate, a large portion of it residential real estate. We've also completed a few $1 million in flips to continue to repopulate or replenish our capital reserve accounts. But guys, none of this was possible until we built out our base portfolio. And for us, it took about 30 BRRRR properties using bank financing and other people's money. Once we got that great foundation in place, we were able to really light the fire with some gas. And we did this all by working, right? I was working a full-time job, wife and being a wife and a mom, and also taking care of other family members at the time. So you guys could be spending your time anywhere, but you're here. So I would love to point out what makes what I'm going to share so different. Essentially, these webinars, I'm distilling down the knowledge that I've gained over 18 years. And it basically boils down into 3 areas. You have to have a specific investing roadmap. And I've got one that can get anyone to financial independence in a fraction of the time than if they didn't have a plan, right? You have to also learn how to put repeatable systems in place and get the right team to execute these systems. And you have to learn how to, especially if you want to scale quickly, how to use other people's money to help accelerate safely. Use other people's money safely and accelerate your wealth growth. Okay, now again, these webinars are just like little snippets. This is the system that I share with my consulting clients, and we'll get into more of that later. But again, let's impart some knowledge to you and get you going on your way. But most importantly, by going through this journey, my results, all of that you saw, the biggest result is I get 100% choice of my time. Okay, guys, I get to step in and do what I love. Now, it's not an overnight success, right? It's like an iceberg. You're seeing the tip of all this work that I've done over the past few years to get here. So, but I want to tell you, you can do it too. So let's dive in. So today I'm going to share with you a little bit of a secret here, and that is, we've been kind of leading up to this, but your investing roadmap. So let's talk about what it is, why it's important, how to do it. Okay. Now, what I'm going to share today are actually the steps that most investors skip. All right. And because they skip it, they get so starry-eyed of like learning how to start analyzing deals and start making offers. If they skip these important steps, it costs them so dearly. All right. And how you see it is maybe not so much in like a financial cost, but shiny object syndrome. They make mistakes, costly mistakes. All right. This isn't going to be you. Okay. And let's start kind of diving into this. All right. Again, you can learn to do this all the hard way, for sure. All right. And this is what I did. I didn't have that roadmap in place. I just skipped this initial investing roadmap step, and I purchased property like without a plan, and it wasted years, of me meeting my goals, and I didn't have any cash flow to show for it. Also, I missed putting the systems in place that I needed and building that I would have formulated my investing plan. And I had no way to track my performance. And, in one summer, I had a 30% turn rate on my portfolio, 2 evictions, and $40,000 of repairs. And if that weren't painful enough, it sucked my time. I was on a big trip with my family. And it just sucked my time. I missed a lot of that trip just dealing with all the headaches that I myself had created for myself. Also, not having that roadmap, the systems in place, and learning how to use other people's money can be very costly, dearly. And for me, I used my own cash for some purchases. I did several purchases all in cash. And just in 1 year, it cost me $200,000 in opportunity cost. I actually got brave a few months ago, and I amortized that over 30 years. That move alone cost me $1.1 million in wealth generation. Okay. So again, I'm not trying to scare you, but again, you can do this the hard way, or you can learn some shortcuts and not make these mistakes, and save yourself a lot of time, a lot of headache, and a lot of money. So let's get back to our investing roadmap. So when we're talking about this roadmap, we have to, there's certain things, that we have to build into this roadmap, all right? We have to understand what your goals are, all right? Now you'll see down here in big bold letters, I put, you need a financial roadmap. We've already talked about that. When I send out the replay of this video, you'll have a link to that video. Okay, that kind of gives you a high level understanding of how to build that financial roadmap. But once you get that financial roadmap in place, now now we're going to kind of have to understand like what your future goals are, right? We have to have 2 points in time to measure against. So where are you in your life? You need to understand if you're going to develop cash flow now, appreciation now, or do you need a blend of both? And when do you need that cash flow appreciation? Do you need it now or later? Okay, so you have to understand those goals. And this is where that financial roadmap will help to inform what you need. Okay, do you need the cash flow? Do you need the appreciation? Or do you need a balanced blend of both? All right. Also feeding into your goals is you have to understand your capital sources. All right. So, sometimes I'll work with an investor and they're just like, I want to build, $5 million net worth and, $20,000 a month, but I got $10,000 to work with. That's going to be super duper duper hard. Okay. But it doesn't have to be your own capital either to get started. All right. So, look at your capital sources as you're putting together your goal plans. You could start, look at all your cash sources, other people's cash sources. Say like friends and family, that's a kind of a good place to start. Okay. People are getting pretty miserable returns in their holding cash in the bank right now. Maybe you could get started with, in rental real estate, utilizing somebody else's cash. Also look at your capital sources. What kind of lending are you able to secure? All right. We want to know that too, because that's going to feed into your goals. That's going to inform what you're going to be able to purchase and how far you're going to be able to scale right now. All right. Now, let's say you've reviewed all of your capital sources and all your lending sources, and you're just like, man, I'm not where I want to be. Okay. And certainly this is not mutually exclusive. You can actually ask your this question later, but you can also examine what kind of partnerships can you go into, right? I think there's a myth in, as people transition and rent to real estate, that they have to do everything themselves. All right. But there's a power in partnerships. I'm partnered with 2 other people and we take down large apartment buildings, okay? And we bring on limited partners in order to help us do that. So there is a power in partnerships. And so that can be, you definitely have to put together a plan around that. But if you're pretty limited on capital, we can look at other debt sources and we can look at other partnership sources. So don't rule that out. So these are the things you need. One of the steps that you need to fill in your investing roadmap is know your goals, know your capital sources. All right. Once we got those nailed down, we need to start understanding the strategy and this plays heavily into our roadmap, because this investing roadmap is going to inform what we're doing, okay, how we're going to execute. All right. So what are your interests when it comes to investing in real estate? Do you like flipping? Do you like rehabs and want to, kind of mesh up flipping and then flip to yourself and hold it as a rental? So for those of you not familiar with the BRRRR term, BRRRR is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Or maybe you're just like, man, I don't have the time to do BRRRR. I don't have the time to do flipping. I just want to buy turnkeys or straight off the MLS and do put in a couple $1,000s and just buy and hold. Right? That's all I want to do. That's totally fine too. Or maybe you're just like, I want to scale larger, or I don't want to buy any properties. I don't want to have that liability on my books. I don't want to try to find the lending. Then maybe a syndication or note investing is the strategy for you. Okay, so we have to align those interests. And I know there's one last bullet point left. I'm going to get to it here in a second. But flipping, BRRRR, buy and hold, syndications, and notes, those are all interests. What interests you? And keep in mind here, we're going to talk about your time. Okay, so there is a method to the madness of the order there. Okay, but once you understand what interests you, now what class of real estate? Do you want to be in single family real estate, multifamily real estate, self-storage, mobile home parks, residential assisted living? There's a whole wealth of areas, okay? And this is where people let the tail wag the dog. They start looking at where they can get that biggest return, and then they back into a strategy, an investment strategy, and they get 2 or 3 years in it, and either they can't figure it out or they hate it, all right? Go with what your interests are. That is going to inform your strategy, right? And the other half of this, you have to understand your time. Okay, remember I said there was a method to the madness of how I line this up, flipping, BRRRR, buy and hold, and syndication and notes. It's how active do you want to be in your investing strategy? Be super duper honest with yourself. Do you have the time, knowledge, and maybe you don't have the knowledge yet, maybe you don't have the money, but do you have the hustle to be active? Maybe that's your value add in your investment strategy. Or do you just want to, and if you can be really active, maybe hands-on flipping is for you. Or maybe you're just like, well, I want to be a little bit active, but once I get the project done, I want to be hands off and just let it ride. Okay, then maybe BRRRR was for you, or buying off the MLS. Right? Maybe you want to be more semi-passive in your investing strategy. Okay, and maybe you want to find people to do this for you, like a property manager or maybe a wholesaler who has a construction business. Okay, maybe you don't want to actually be swinging the hammer and all that. How can you put together a team to actually execute your strategy for you? All right. Then maybe you're just like, I got no time. Maybe your time's better spent in another capacity. Maybe you are a high income earner in your job, or you really, really love your job. You're just like, man, I want to get into real estate, but I just don't have the time for it or the bandwidth. Then maybe syndications and notes are for you, because you're investing in somebody else's business and they're running the show. Okay. So again, take into account your interests, take into account your time, and then make sure you can find flipping, burrs, buy and holds, and syndications in any one of these: single family, multifamily, self-storage, mobile home park, residential assisted living. Okay. This screen right here is going to help you get super duper clear on your strategy. All right. So, and guys, at any point in time, you can go to the chat box, drop in a question, and I will do my best to answer those in line. Otherwise, we'll clean them all up at the end. Okay, so we've got your goals, we got your strategy. Only when you got your goals and your strategy in place, now is the time to put together your criteria. Okay, and this, unfortunately, is where I see, especially like on some big name forums and stuff like that, where I see other investors giving advice, is to start here, understanding your criteria. Okay, this is the how. We need to know the what and the why first. Okay, so once you understand what you're getting into, now we can, again, send it through a filter. We can narrow it down. So there are different types of criteria that we need to look at. There's two different categories. The first category is, what is the physical criteria of the property you're looking at? Now, for me, as you can see, I'm heavily invested in residential real estate. So I'm going to stick to kind of those criteria on that side. All right. So, but if you're going to go into self-storage or mobile home parks, certainly you're going to come up with another deck of criteria. But we want to look at what property type will attract the tenant you want to work with. Okay. Do they want to live in single family or multifamily? How large of a house do they want? How many beds or baths do they want? How many stories? Do they want to live on a 1-story or 2-story? Do they need storage? Do they need a garage? Do they need a yard? Those are the type of questions you need to be thinking of for yourself. For me, when I was starting off in single family investing, my buy box was very simple: 3-bedroom, 1 bath, or 1+ bath, 1,000 square feet or more, single story, because I'd already done the 2-story houses and had that toilet break on the 2nd floor going into the 1st floor. I was not attached to having a basement, but it definitely needed to have a garage if it didn't have a basement. Okay, and a yard, because I wanted to attract a family to live in that house. Okay, I thought, for me, families live longer in a property. It's harder for them to move. All right, so that's the first criteria when you're looking at the physical property. And the next criteria is looking at the class of the property. Do you want to be in Class A? Okay, Class A neighborhood is, your higher end neighborhoods, Class 10 schools located great jobs next to amazing amenities. Or do you want to be like in a B, which is more workforce housing? Or are you okay with a Class C property? All right, again, kind of more of a blue collar area, but there's a lot of that to invest in the United States. Okay, Class D, there is a Class D. I kind of view that more of your kind of what we call quote unquote war zones. I typically will stay away from those areas, but what class of property do you want to be in? All right, that question alone will inform the type of returns you will get on your asset too. All right, if you need heavy amounts of cash flow, Class A might not be the place for you. You might need to go into like B minus, maybe even C+ areas. All right. Also take into account the amenities that you think your ideal tenant is going to want. So when you're looking at the physical property, okay, put down some amenities that you're looking for. That way, again, you're trying to help filter out all of the noise. Does the property need to be relatively close to work? What kind of lifestyle amenities do you need to have? Like a grocery store, shopping, stuff like that. What are the schools like in the area? Okay, especially if you're trying to track a family. I also take a look at the environmental aspects of the area. Is it really close to waterways, power lines, and railroads? Those are things I typically will try to stay away from. Power lines and railroads, just because they typically are unsightly and noisy. Waterways, because then you might, you definitely want to look at the floodplain in the area. But maybe also flip it on its head, do you want to be close to parks? Right? Again, just think about the physical criteria of the property. that you want to invest in. Once you kind of, again, the filtering this down, once you understand your physical criteria of the property you want to buy, now's the time to do the research and attach some underwriting criteria to this, right? And I say this because I already mentioned, maybe you're wanting to invest in a Class A property, but you need it to cash flow $200 or more a month. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. We need to be realistic. But a Class B property, you're going to get closer. Maybe even a C plus property in the right area will get really close to that cash flow. All right. But when you're looking at your underwriting, put down some expectations on, again, what kind of capital can you invest in each asset, all right? If you're executing a BRRRR strategy, you can recycle your capital, but maybe you leave $5,000 or $10,000 in per project, all right? Think about your cash on cash return that you want to achieve, okay? What cash do you want to pull off that on a monthly basis, all right? I think in terms of my cash on cash, after setting aside all expenses and all reserves, all right? So I'm setting aside, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, HOA, utilities, if there's common utilities on the property. Then I'm also removing 8% minimum for a vacancy allowance, and then also 5 to 10% each for CapEx and maintenance. Now, you start adding that all up, you're just like, man, do I have any meat left on the bone? You better, you better. All right. So don't fool yourself. Make sure you are underwriting properly and you've got some good solid cash on cash. All right. Now let's stick a pin in that. All right. So the cash on cash might be one thing. Maybe you're generating a 12% return, but cash flow, what is the cash flow on the property? And I, kind of went toe to toe with somebody on a forum here about a week ago because they were so jazzed that they had an infinite cash on cash return. And I challenged them. I'm like, well, what's the cash flow on the property? And they were like, oh, I'm making $25 a month. And I'm like, wow, that is not a safe investment. All right. So making sure that you have ample cash flow coming in on the property as well, so you can adjust for the markets. Also take note, what can you do for a rehab? Like, how do you want to put anything in for a rehab on the property? Or do you just want to have, or like if you're going to do BRRRR, that your buy box is going to be, say, only for properties that are where the rehab's $25,000 or less. All right, again, have a buy box. Again, what we're trying to do is put together an investment plan so you can cut out all the noise. Where focus goes, energy flows. Cut out the noise. All right. Then what's the return on your equity that you desire? All right. This is a huge question because it plays into your investment strategy. If you need an 8% or higher return on your equity, you're going to have to do BRRRR. All right. Or you're going to have to let the market catch up for you. All right. Because if you put down a 20% down payment, you're not going to have that return on your equity. All right. Also, this is probably one of the top criteria that I look at: debt service coverage ratio. Okay, making sure that you have a line drawn in the sand on your investment plan that you're only going to invest in properties that have a certain debt service coverage ratio or higher. For me, I have that line drawn in the sand at 1.25. Why? Because I know I can continue to get lending on any property if my entire portfolio stays above that 1.25 line, okay? And there's other underwriting criteria that you might want to drop in there. But this is just, some ideas to get you started and thinking as you put together this investing plan. And guys, this doesn't have to be a complicated spreadsheet. It shouldn't. This should be just a one-page bullet pointed plan to get you started and help you start filtering out and get you lined out on the direction you need to go. All right, so let's take a quick example, a look at what happens when you have a plan and when you don't. So this is investor number one, okay? They have invested in property and it's only making $0 to $70 per month, okay? I'm already gonna tell you right now, it was probably very poorly underwritten, but their goal from their financial roadmap, say they determined they needed $5,000 a month in income. Well, simple math tells us 5,000 divided by 70 equals 72 single family houses or 72 units, okay? Now, if they were only making $0, if the market adjusted on them and they had to give up that $70 in cash flow, now they have nothing coming in, right? See how important this is? All right. Now, let's say they were in a market and they could put $25,000 down per door. Okay, that's what they were trying to do. That's what it was going to take. All right. Then they needed $1.8 million in capital ready to go right now to invest in order to hit that $5,000 a month. Okay, not very good returns. Not very good returns at all. All right. Now let's take a look at investor number two. Investor number two, they had a strategy. They had a roadmap. They know what they're doing. All right. They've had that high level conversation with themselves. They sought out some help to help them put together this roadmap. And they're targeting $200 and $250 a month per door. And they have properly underwritten reserves, meaning they can actually bob and weave with the market. They have their financial moat in place, as we talked about last week. They understand how to properly underwrite their reserves and run the business. They have the same goal too. They want $5,000 a month in passive income. And simple math tells us now they just need 20 single family homes purchased in order to achieve this goal. A lot different strategy here, okay? Now let's assume that they were only doing $25,000 down per door, okay? They need $500,000 in capital ready to go in order to hit that $5,000 mark, $5,000 a month in passive income, okay? Very different, almost 75% less than what investor number one needed, okay? So, or I can show you how to do this with just getting started with $50,000, okay? So that is the power of BIRD, learning how to recycle those capital funds. But again, you have to understand what your investing roadmap is, okay? So you guys see the difference between having a roadmap, not having a roadmap? Now I'm gonna tell you a little secret. I was investor number one when I first started out. I got smart. I put together my roadmap. I learned how to do it. And then I turned into investor number two nearly overnight. Okay, that's how important it is. All right. Now, let's shift topics. You got your goals in place. You know your strategy. Okay, you understand your criteria. Now, only now is the proper time for you to start understanding your market that you need to invest in. Okay. How many people do you guys see on the forums who are just like, I want to buy a house. What market are you in? Great, I'm going to invest there too, right? They skip this such of an important step, right? So let's talk about the market. Okay, what goes into market research? Here's just a little overview of things that should go into your market research. And I think of this as stacking your investing cards in your favor, right? We want to make sure that you are fortifying that investment. One, preserving your capital. Two, preserving your cash flow. Three, preserving the ability of the asset to grow over time. Tax benefits are going to come along with how you invest. That's fine. We can, when we talk about our 4 tenets of conservative investing, that's fine. The tax benefits will come. But what can you do right now in your investing roadmap to preserve your capital, cash flow, and appreciation? Okay. So looking at your metropolitan service area, also known as the MSA, look for areas where there's good job growth, good diversity of jobs, income growth, population growth. Okay, we want to make sure there are people to rent to and they're not leaving. Housing affordability. Okay, also rent affordability. Can they actually afford the rents in the area? Okay, if people can't afford the housing and they can't afford the rent, eventually they're going to move to a place they can't afford it. Okay, so you want to be in that area already. Also look at the landlord-tenant laws and the taxes. The last two, the landlord-tenant laws and the taxes, are probably the two biggest hiccups when people encounter when they try to invest in their own backyard. I see it all the time with people that are just so enchanted with California or Washington, Oregon. I'm in Colorado. We do pretty well on taxes and pretty decent on landlord-tenant laws, but our issue is affordability. These are things where you want to take the blinders off and really fully evaluate your market and make sure it's the best place for you to, again, preserve your capital, create cash flow, and that appreciation. All right. The next place, once you understand your MSA, the large city that you want to be in, now it's time to go find the area. Okay, what part of town do you want to invest in, right? I know, it's easy to knock Detroit, even though Detroit's kind of up and coming, but there are certain pockets around Detroit that might be worthwhile to invest in. So we call those things the sub-market. So these are the criteria that I would look at for a sub-market. You can put this together on a spreadsheet and kind of come up with your different levels, matrices you want to measure against. But in sub-market, you want to understand what's the income level at the sub-market level, okay? Can the people in that area afford your rental? What is the unemployment rate? Do they have a job? What is the median rent? Now we're getting super granular on the affordability of the area. We also want to look at the crime rate in the area. We want to see it stabilized and coming down. We also want to make sure that it's not what we call a one-horse pony area, that there's a lot of industry in the area to support jobs. Schools are always attractive for people to move in the area. We want to take a look at the schools. And then we also want to look at the poverty level. How many people are living at or below the poverty line? And what way is that trending? Because that's going to clue you in on if that sub-market area is in the path of growth and progress, or if it's in the on the decline. Okay, so we've covered quite a bit here on the investing roadmap. So again, we want to define our goals. We want to define the investment strategy. We want to define the investment criteria, and then we also and only then do we want to start diving into the market. And guys, as I said before, this is the heavy lift. This is the heavy lift, okay? But once you get it done, you will have so much clarity, and clarity is power, okay? And again, it will help you stay extremely focused and move forward so quickly. All right. So we've covered quite a bit in this little bit of time, but hopefully everybody here agrees that it's been time well spent. I hope you guys took a wealth of notes. Anyways, I want to thank you for spending your time here today, investing your #1 resource here with me. Your time is your most precious asset. And my question for you is, do you want help with this? If you want help with this, stay on the line. We can talk about some strategies that I have in place that I can help you. If you're just here in the information gathering stage and you're just like, nope, I just want to get some information and check out, that's totally fine from you. Feel free to drop off now. If you want help with this, I do run what I call the Investor Accelerator. And in this accelerator, I'm just going to give you a little snippet of who this is for. This is for people that are just starting off in real estate, doing this on the side, and maybe you've never done a deal yet. And also for people who have properties under their belt, doing this more full time and want to learn how to scale. And in the accelerator, I consider it, it's a course. There's the education component, but it's really a mentorship program, right? It is designed for people who want to get a base knowledge of education, but also they want the ongoing support and mentorship in order to build their dream portfolio and accelerate growth faster. So these are just a few of the things that go into the Investor Accelerator. We have a private community. We have monthly business and growth sessions. We have monthly expert sessions to help expand your investing knowledge and network, not only in real estate, but in finances in general. I also hold regular office hours to help you out in between sessions. So, you've got at least 4 or 5 hours of contact time with me every single month, for a year. And then anything that I build for my business goes into this program. So you essentially can copy my exact systems, tools, and checklists and help you short path your growth. All right. And if you are interested, all you need to do is just go to ashwealth.com/apply, just like a 10-second application, and then we can hop on the phone and make sure that this is the right program for you. Otherwise, Thank you so much for joining today. I will hang on here and answer any questions that you guys might have. But again, thank you so much for investing time in yourself and spending it here with me today.